I broke through to the great vehicle stage that day, and the gate to the secret realm burst open. A myriad of rays shone. Heaven and earth rejoiced together. But I only saw that white-haired, decrepit figure on the edge of the cliff. It was my younger sister, Lu Yao. Her body was covered in sword wounds, her breath as weak as a flickering candle in the wind. Before I went into seclusion, she was still a clever and delicate nascent soul genius. Who did this? I heard the disciples of the sect talking. That Jinx's brother has come out of seclusion. Hush, don't let her hear. She stole senior sister Qingqian's phoenix, had her golden core removed by the master, and was thrown off the 10,000 sword cliff for 100 years. She's already a cripple. I laughed. Removing my sister's golden core, stealing the phoenix I gave her, the darling of the group, is it? I want to see if you can handle this favor. The spiritual energy of the secret realm poured out like a tsunami, and the entire Qingxian sect's mountain gate was violently shaking. I took a step out. 1,000 years is but a fleeting moment. For me, it is the ascent of cultivation. For heaven and earth, it is the change of laws. But in my eyes, there was only that thin figure huddled on the edge of the cliff. The disciple's uniform on her body was already tattered, mixed with dried blood, clinging tightly to her skeletal frame. A gust of wind blew, and she was like a withered leaf, ready to be swept into the abyss. Yaya! My heart seemed to be grasped by an invisible hand, instantly stopping its beating. I remember, before leaving, she pulled on my sleeve, her almond eyes curved in a smile. Brother, you can go into seclusion with peace of mind. When you come out, I will definitely be the #1 nascent soul. Brother, this phoenix egg is so beautiful, really for me. Brother, come out quickly. Yao misses you. Her words still rang in my ears. But the person before me was white-haired and disheveled, her life force extinguished. I flashed and was already in front of her. My fingertip gently touched her wrist, cold and stiff. A gentle stream of spiritual power probed into her body. The dantian was shattered. The spiritual veins were broken. The soul was as dim as a dying candle. What cruel methods! This is to make her wish she could not live, but unable to die. A monstrous murderous intent erupted from my body. The wind and clouds changed color, and there was a faint thunder in the sky. Several patrolling disciples in the distance were directly overturned by this pressure, spitting blood, their faces filled with horror. It's the direction of the secret realm. What terrifying pressure! Could it be that the ancestor has come out of seclusion? Lu Yao seemed to be startled, and laboriously opened her eyelids, and my reflection was cast in her cloudy pupils. She looked for a long time, and her chapped lips moved, but she couldn't make sound. 2 lines of bloody tears slid down her deeply lined cheeks. Brother. A weak, hoarse call, almost drowned out by the wind, but it was like a heavy hammer hitting my heart hard. I helped her up and let her lean in my arms. Yao, don't be afraid. Brother is back. My voice was very soft, very gentle, for fear of startling her. A drop of golden blood oozed from my fingertip, suspended between her eyebrows. This is my great vehicle essence blood. 1 drop can revive the dead and regenerate flesh and bone. The golden light entered, and a vast vitality instantly swept through Lu Yao's body. Her white hair turned black at a speed visible to the naked eye, and her shriveled skin regained its fullness and radiance. The hideous sword wounds on her body disappeared inch by inch under the golden light. In the blink of an eye, the white-haired old woman returned to the bright-eyed and white-toothed girl in my memory. However, she was still unconscious. The injury to her dantian was too severe. At this moment, several streams of light shot from the direction of the main peak and landed not far away. The leader was my master, real man Xinyang. Behind him were several elders, as well as my most valued senior brother, Lin Yi. And protected by them, like a galaxy of stars in the middle, a girl in white with a pitiful expression. Oh, quite the fanfare. This is the darling of the group, Su Qingqian. As soon as real man Xinyang landed, his eyes were locked on me. He was first shocked by the unfathomable aura on my body, then frowned, and his gaze fell on Lu Yao in my arms. Lu Heng, you've come out of seclusion. His tone carried a hint of imperceptible scrutiny. What have you done to your sister? How can a cripple like her have such a huge fluctuation of vitality? Cripple? Those two words roll off your tongue so easily. I ignored him, just lowered my head and looked at Lu Yao in my arms, who was gradually regaining her color. Senior brother Lin, he stood up and rebuked righteously. Lu Heng, why don't you bow when you see the master? You've been in seclusion for 1,000 years, and your temperament has become even more eccentric. Quickly put down your demoness sister. She stole spiritual pets from fellow disciples, a heinous crime. Now you have restored her with evil magic. Do you want to be enemies with the entire sect? Demoness. I slowly raised my head and swept my gaze calmly over him. Evil magic? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat when I looked at him. But when he thought that his master and the entire sect were behind him, he mustered up his courage again. Isn't it? Lu Yao has an evil mind, jealous of senior sister Qingqian's talent, and dared to steal the divine beast Phoenix. This is a great crime. Master only crippled her golden core, which is already an act of grace. Oh, a mocking arc appeared at the corner of my mouth. That Phoenix was obtained by me in exchange for half my essence blood for Yao. When did it become someone else's spiritual pet? As soon as these words came out, the audience was shocked. Real man Xinyang and several elders' faces changed slightly. Su Qingqian's delicate body trembled even more. She looked at me in disbelief and weakly defended herself. This senior brother, you must be mistaken. Fenger and I are of one mind. It took the initiative to choose me as its master. As she said that, she gently called out, Fengye. A clear phoenix cry resounded through the sky. A dazzling 5-colored phoenix flew from the direction of the main peak, its posture arrogant, its divine light flowing. It affectionately landed on Su Qingqian's shoulder and rubbed its head against her cheek. A smug smile appeared on Su Qingqian's face, and she looked at me with the pity of a victor in her eyes. Senior brother, look, Fenger and I are a match made in heaven. Lin, he also sneered. Lu Heng, facts speak louder than words. Divine beasts are spiritual and will choose their own master. What else do you have to say? A match made in heaven? A beast dares to touch my blood contract? I looked at the triumphant phoenix and smiled. I didn't speak. I just held out a hand. The next second, the phoenix, which had been nuzzling affectionately on Su Qingqian's shoulder, suddenly stiffened. All its feathers stood on end, and it let out a cry of extreme terror, as if it had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. In everyone's shocked gaze, it desperately broke free from Su Qingqian, like an arrow shot from a bow, rushing towards me like crazy. No, not rushing. It pounced. Then, in the air 3 steps away from me, this arrogant, ancient divine beast restrained all its divine light and lowered its proud head. It prostrated in the void, its huge body trembling violently with fear. Towards me, it kowtowed, its whole body touching the ground. The air was deathly silent. Everyone was stunned by the scene before them. The color drained from Su Qingqian's face in an instant. She staggered back, muttering, No, impossible. Fenger, come back. Come back quickly. She desperately called out, even trying to activate the contract between them. However, the phoenix seemed not to hear, still prostrating in the air, not even daring to lift its head. It was a primal fear and submission, originating from the depths of its bloodline. Lin Yi's mouth was open wide enough to fit an egg, pointing at me. He couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time. What did you do to it? Xian Yangzhen's face was even darker than water. He stared at me, his eyes full of apprehension and murderous intent. Lu Heng, what kind of sorcery did you use? Sorcery? Ignorant, how pathetic. I couldn't be bothered to explain. My bloodline originated from the beginning of chaos. The ancestor of this phoenix wasn't even qualified to be my mount back then. It was its good fortune to be able to sense the supreme aura in my bloodline. Betrayal has a price. I looked indifferently at the phoenix and uttered a single word. Scram. The phoenix was pardoned, let out a mournful cry, tucked its tail between its legs, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the sky without looking back. It actually fled Qin Xian Sect directly. Su Qin Xian was struck by lightning, collapsing to the ground with a thud. Her greatest reliance, the chosen one, proof she was most proud of, was frightened away by a single word from me. This was more humiliating than slapping her 10,000 times in public. No, my Feng. She cried out miserably, tears streaming down her face, a pitiful sight. Lin immediately rushed over to help her up, his eyes full of pity, and then glared at me. Lu Hong, you've gone too far. Qin Qian Shimi is kind-hearted. Why would you humiliate her like this? Xian Yang Jinren finally found an excuse to attack, his voice as cold as iron. Lu Hong, you forcibly seized a fellow disciple's spirit pet, show no respect for your elders, and now you dare to commit violence. Men, take him down and throw him into the Demon Suppression Tower. Finally dropping the act. Demon Suppression Tower? With you. As Xian Yang Jinren gave the order, several elders immediately dispersed, faintly surrounding me. A vast spiritual pressure pressed down from all directions. This was the pressure of a great ascension stage powerhouse. Anywhere else, it would be enough to shatter mountains and rivers. However, the mountain-like pressure fell on me like a gentle breeze, not even making the corner of my clothes flutter. I held Lu Yao and slowly stood up. My gaze swept over Xian Yang Jinren, Lin Yi, and then Su Qin Xian on the ground crying, one by one. Is that all? The next moment, an unspeakably terrifying aura awakened from within me. Like a prehistoric beast that had slept for ages, opened its eyes. Heaven and earth were silenced. The sun and moon lost their light. The spiritual pressure released by those elders was as insignificant as ants in the face of this aura. They grunted, spitting out a mouthful of blood, their faces instantly pale, and they were sent flying backwards by the rebounding force, landing clumsily on the ground. Xian Yang Jinren bore the brunt of the impact. He felt as if he had been hit head-on by an ancient divine mountain. His protective spiritual light shattered inch by inch, his legs weakened, and he almost knelt down. He looked up in horror, his pupils constricting violently. Great ascension stage. How is this possible? The words Great Ascension Stage exploded in everyone's ears like a thunderclap from the nine heavens. The anger and disdain on Lin Yi's face instantly froze, replaced by endless fear and confusion. Su Qingqian's cries also stopped abruptly. She stared at me blankly, as if she was seeing me for the first time. Impossible? The old ancestor said himself, no leaving seclusion until reaching Great Ascension. Have you forgotten, or have you simply never taken me seriously? I walked toward them step by step. With each step, Xian Yang Jinren's face turned paler. He wanted to escape, but found that his body was like being pressed down by billions of mountains, unable to move even a finger. I walked up to him and looked down at him condescendingly. Sure, Zuin, I called out, my tone calm. Xian Yang Jinren's body trembled, forcing out a smile that was uglier than crying. Lu Hong, you listen to my explanation. There's a misunderstanding here. Misunderstanding? I interrupted him. My sister's golden core, you were the one who extracted it, right? Xian Yang Jinren's Adam's apple bobbed, sweat pouring down, but he couldn't say a word. My sister's spiritual veins, you were the ones who crippled them, right? I looked at Lin Yi and the other elders. Throwing her into 10,000 sword cliff for 100 years, allowing the sword energy to erode her. That was your decision as well, right? My voice was still calm, but every word was like a cold blade, piercing their hearts. Now, you're telling me it's a misunderstanding? I smiled. The laughter was very soft, but it made everyone present feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Lu Hong, don't forget, I am your Shizuan. Do you dare to commit patricide and rebel against your master? Patricide and rebel against my master? I shook my head. No, I'm just here to seek justice. As soon as the words fell, I pointed my fingers like a sword and gently tapped Xian Yangzhenren's dantian. There was no earth-shattering noise, only a crisp sound, like porcelain shattering. Real person Xian Yang suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood, his entire being instantly withering, his head of black hair turning gray at a speed visible to the naked eye. His cultivation of thousands of years was reduced to nothing with that one finger. My cultivation, my golden core. He collapsed to the ground, acting like a madman. Everyone was stunned. That was the sect leader, a grandmaster of the integration stage. Just like that. Was he crippled? My gaze turned to Lin Yi. Lin Yi thumped and knelt down directly, tears streaming down his face. Junior brother. No, senior brother. I was wrong. I was really wrong. It's all Su Qingxian. She bewitched me. She tricked us into saying that junior sister, Lu Yao, stole her phoenix. It's nothing to do with me. To save his life, he unhesitatingly pushed Su Qingxian forward. Su Qingxian looked at him in disbelief, her body shaking like a sieve. Senior brother Lin. You. Dog-eat-dog quite quick. I wasn't interested in watching them act. I raised my hand, ready to send them on their way together. Just then, an old and majestic voice came from the depths of the Qingxian sect, echoing throughout the heavens and earth. Stop! A golden light flashed, and an old man with white hair and a youthful face, with an air of immortality, appeared before everyone. The Qingxian sect's pillar of strength, the Grand Elder of the Tribulation Transcending Stage. As soon as the Grand Elder appeared, real person Xian Yang and Lin Yi seemed to have grasped at a life-saving straw. Grand Elder, save me. The old man ignored them, his eyes that pierced through the affairs of the world only fixed on me. Lu Hong, it's been 1,000 years since we met. You have actually entered the great ascension stage. Why inflict such a cruel hand within the sect? I looked at him, my expression indifferent. If I hadn't come out of seclusion, my sister would now be a pile of bones. If I hadn't taken action, I would be the next one crippled. Now you ask me why. The Grand Elder frowned. I have also heard of Lu Yao's matter, but Xian Yang's handling may have been inappropriate, but it doesn't deserve this. You crippling his cultivation is already too much. Too much. My sister suffered the pain of 100 years of sword chi devouring her body under Sword Cliff, and you say it's too much? I sneered in my heart, but didn't show it on my face. Then, in the Grand Elder's opinion, what should be done? The Grand Elder said in a deep voice, you are already at the great ascension stage, and you are the future hope of our sect. Let's just drop this matter here. Xian Yang will be handed over to the sect for disposal, and the sect will compensate your sister's losses 100-fold. What do you think? His words sounded high-sounding, but in reality, he was trying to smooth things over, using a vague hope of the sect to erase the suffering my sister had endured. Old thing, you think you're so clever. Compensation? I smiled. Okay. I carried Lu Yao and walked to Qing Yao abode, the place where she used to live, which was now in ruins. I want you to restore this place to its original state. The Grand Elder was stunned, seemingly not expecting my request to be so simple. Real person Xian Yang and Lin Yi also breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they didn't want their lives, anything was fine. What difficulty is there in this? The Grand Elder flicked his whisk, about to use the universe in the sleeve technique. Wait, I interrupted him. I'm saying you personally. I pointed at the paralyzed real person Xian Yang, the kneeling Lin Yi, and the trembling Su Qingxian. Brick by brick, plant by plant, you must build it up with your own hands. When it's built, then we'll talk about the rest. Upon hearing these words, the three of them turned pale, letting these high and mighty cultivators do the hard work of ordinary people. That was more uncomfortable than killing them. Lu Hong, don't push your luck too far. Lin Yi couldn't help but roar. My eyes turned cold. An invisible sword intent instantly locked onto him. Lin Yi only felt a chill on his neck, as if his head was about to fall in the next second, and he was immediately frightened into silence. The Grand Elder's face also became extremely unsightly. "Lu Heng, you are humiliating the entire sect." "Humiliating?" I sneered. "When my sister's golden core was cut out, did you think it was humiliating? When she was thrown down Sword Cliff, did you think it was humiliating? Now, I'm just making the culprits pay a negligible price, and you think it's humiliating? Your faces are a bit too big." I ignored them and sat down cross-legged in the square in front of the main hall, holding Lu Yao. I set up a barrier, isolating all prying eyes. Then, I transferred my Great Ascension Tao principles into Lu Yao's body little by little, rebuilding her dantian and recreating her spiritual meridians. My attitude was clear. If you don't build it, I'll wait here. Wait until my sister wakes up. Then, it won't be as simple as building a house. The Grand Elder's face turned green and white. He knew very well that if a cultivator in the Great Ascension stage was truly determined to make trouble, the entire Qingxian sect would be turned upside down. Force was definitely not an option. He glanced at the half-dead real person Xianyang on the ground, and Lin Yi and Su Qingxian, who were scared out of their wits, and finally let out a long sigh. "Do as he says." These 5 words seemed to drain all the strength from his body. It also sentenced the fate of Xianyang and the other 2. Under the complex gazes of countless sect disciples, the once high and mighty sect leader, the proud son of Heaven's senior brother, and the beloved junior sister who was the center of attention, began their long, hard labor. Without their cultivation, they could only go down the mountain to transport bricks and stones like mortals and go to the forest to cut down wood. On the first day, Su Qingqian's delicate hands were worn out with blisters, and she cried heart-wrenchingly. Lin, he was not doing any better. Having been pampered, he was already panting after carrying a few stones. Real person Xianyang was even more like a madman, cursing while working, his eyes filled with resentment. I saw all of this, but I didn't care. All my mind was focused on Lu Yao. Rebuilding her dantian and spiritual meridians was more complicated than I had imagined. The technique of cutting out the core was too vicious, not only destroying the foundation, but also leaving indelible Tao wounds in her body. I could only use my Great Ascension Tao principles to slowly grind away and slowly repair. This was a painstaking effort. Time passed day by day. The prototype of Qing Yao abode was slowly built by the 3 crippled people. And the entire Qingxian sect was also undergoing undercurrents because of this incident. The sect leader was deposed, and the supreme elder compromised. Lu Heng's name became a taboo and a legend. Everyone knew that the sky of the Qingxian sect was about to change. That day, I was smoothing out the last trace of damaged meridians for Lu Yao when a commotion came from outside the barrier. It was a group of inner disciples blocking the construction site of Qing Yao abode. They were supporters of Su Qingxian. Why should senior sister Qingxian do such rough work? Lu Heng bullies others using his power. Why doesn't the supreme elder care? We must seek justice for senior sister Qingxian. They were agitated, protecting Su Qingxian, who was working behind them. Su Qingxian hid behind the crowd, a hint of triumph and resentment flashing in her eyes. Oh, are there still those who aren't afraid of death? I slowly opened my eyes. Lu Yao's injuries had stabilized, and all that remained was time to nurture them. It was time to settle the score. I removed the barrier, picked up Lu Yao, and walked out step by step. When those clamoring disciples saw me, their voices faltered, but relying on their numbers, their courage grew again. The leading core disciple, Lin Yi's junior brother, stood out and pointed at me. "Lu Heng, don't think you can do whatever you want just because your cultivation is high. My Qingxian sect is a righteous sect. How can we allow you to run wild like this?" I looked at him like a dead man. "Are you finished? If you're finished, then hit the road." I flicked my finger. A subtle sword chi, too fast to be caught by the naked eye. The expression on that disciple's face still remained angry, but at his brow there was already a tiny blood hole. His vitality was instantly cut off. With a bang, he fell straight down. The entire scene was deathly silent. One finger, instant kill. A core disciple in the late Golden Core stage didn't even have a chance to react before dying. The disciples who had been agitated earlier were now like ducks with their necks strangled, their faces pale, and their legs weak. Fear spread like a plague. Su Qingxian screamed and collapsed to the ground in fright. I didn't look at the corpse, but scanned everyone present. Is there anyone else who wants to seek justice for her? My voice was not loud, but clearly reached everyone's ears. No one dared to answer. No one even dared to meet my gaze. A bunch of trash. I shook my head, somewhat disappointed. Then, I looked at Su Qingxian. You seem to have a lot to say to me. Su Qingxian trembled all over, shaking her head desperately, her teeth chattering. No, I don't. Senior brother, spare me. Spare you. I smiled. When my sister begged for mercy, did you spare her? I raised my hand. Su Qingxian's eyes were filled with despair. Don't. Lin Yi suddenly rushed over like crazy, blocking in front of Su Qingxian. His eyes were bloodshot, staring at me fiercely. Lu Hong, if you have the guts, come at me. Don't touch Qingxian. Oh, a hero saving the beauty? How devoted. Unfortunately, in front of me, it's useless. I looked at him, a hint of pity in my eyes. You think you can run away? My hand did not stop. The target was still Su Qingxian. But just as my fingertip was about to touch her, a light curtain appeared out of thin air, blocking her. It was the Supreme Elder. He was here again. Lu Hong, that's enough. His face was more solemn than ever. You've already killed one person. Do you really want to start a massacre in my Qingxian sect? I looked at him, my eyes cold. I said, I want justice. A life for a life, it's only right. Those three must die today. The Supreme Elder took a deep breath, seemingly making a decision. If you insist on this, then this old man can only learn about the methods of the great ascension stage. As soon as he finished speaking, a pressure 10 times stronger than that of Xianyang Zhenren rose to the sky. The aura of the late tribulation transcendent stage was released without reservation. The entire Qingxian sect's mountain range was moaning under this aura. Sect formation activate. With the Supreme Elder's order, the Qingxian sect's mountain protecting formation was activated with a rumble. Pillars of light shot up from various peaks, weaving a huge light net above the sky, covering the entire sect. Ancient and majestic power flowed within the formation. This was the Qingxian sect's foundation that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, the immortal slaughtering sword formation. It was said that once this formation was activated, it could slay immortals and demons. All the disciples became excited. It's the immortal slaughtering sword formation. Great! The Supreme Elder has taken action. Lu Hong is dead. Even if he's in the Great Ascension stage, he definitely can't withstand the immortal slaughtering sword formation. Hope was rekindled on the faces of Lin Yi and Su Qingxian as well. They looked at me, who was surrounded by the sword formation, their eyes filled with joy and resentment. The Supreme Elder, holding a whisk, stood in the center of the sword formation, like a god. Lu Hong, this old man will give you one last chance. Surrender obediently, and this old man can leave you with a complete corpse. Immortal Subduing the formation. A little interesting. Unfortunately, it's incomplete. I looked at the dense sword chi above my head. Not only was there no fear on my face, but a hint of nostalgia appeared. This sword formation, was it laid down by the Qingxian ancestor? I suddenly asked. The Supreme Elder was stunned. How do you know? I was watching from the side when he was setting up the array. I said calmly. He even asked me what the flaws of this array were. I said, there were too many flaws, full of loopholes. He didn't believe me, and even made a bet with me. The bet was the position of sect master of this Qingxian sect, and the control of this sword array. My words, like a fantastical tale, made everyone think I was crazy. The Supreme Elder was so angry that he laughed. Nonsense! You dare to insult the founder even when you're about to die. Since you are obsessed, Don't blame this old man for being ruthless. Swords, come. He gave an order. Thousands of sword energies converged into a giant sword that pierced the sky, carrying the power to destroy the world, and slashed down at me. This one sword was enough to flatten a mountain range. Everyone held their breath, as if they had already seen me being chopped into powder. However, I just raised my head. Looking at the giant sword, I said softly, "Swords are not used like this." I reached out my hand towards the void and gently clenched it. A ray arose by my command. A soft hum sounded. The giant sword about to fall suddenly stopped 3 inches above my head. Then, in everyone's incredulous gaze, it reversed its direction. The tip of the sword, aimed at the Supreme Elder in the center of the sword array. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. The Supreme Elder's majesty and confidence were instantly replaced by shock and bewilderment. He desperately urged the incantation, try to regain control of the sword array. However, the giant sword remained motionless. The chilling aura emanating from the tip of the sword made him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. This is impossible, he exclaimed in a lost voice, his voice full of trembling. How could you possibly control the immortal slaying sword array? This is absolutely impossible. Nothing is impossible, because the core of this sword array is a formation pattern I casually inscribed back then. The Qingxian ancestor merely copied it. I looked at him, like looking at a child playing with an adult's toys. Now, do you still think you can experience my methods? The Supreme Elder's face was ashen. He finally understood that from the beginning, he was wrong. Wrong to the extreme. He thought he was facing a rising star, a junior he could manipulate. But now he realized that he was facing an ancient god he could not understand or resist at all. He opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. The arrogance and dignity that supported him as the Supreme Elder were crushed to pieces in the face of absolute power. The surrounding disciples were even more frightened out of their wits. Even the Supreme Elder and the mountain protecting array were no match. What kind of monster is this Lu Hong? The hope on Lin Yi and Su Qingqian's faces completely turned into despair. No. I ignored them. My gaze returned to Xian Yangzhenren, Lin Yi, and Su Qingqian. The game is over. With a thought, 3 subtle sword energies separated from the giant's sword silently shot towards them. No. The Supreme Elder's eyes were tearing, but he was powerless. He could only watch as the 3 sword energies entered their bodies. No explosion, no blood. The 3 of them just stiffened, and then their bodies began to melt in a strange way. Not flesh and blood, but their cultivation, their Tao foundation, their souls. Little by little, they were decomposed by the sword energy and dissipated into the air. This process was slow and clear. They could clearly feel everything about them leaving, but they couldn't make any sound or make any movements. On their faces, there was only endless fear and pain. Xian Yangzhenren was the first to be unable to bear it. His soul was completely obliterated by the sword energy, and his body turned into ashes. Then it was Lin Yi. Before he died, his eyes were still fixed on Su Qingqian, full of unwillingness and resentment. Finally, it was Su Qingqian. Her pitiful face twisted and deformed in extreme pain, revealing her most vicious and truest appearance. Until the last moment, she turned into ashes and dissipated in the wind. The whole world was quiet. Core expectation fulfilled, culprits executed. A breeze blew, stirring up the dust on the ground, as if nothing had happened. But everyone in the Qingxian sect knew that the sky had fallen. The sect master died. The Supreme Elder defeated. The once invincible immortal slaying sword array had become a toy in the opponent's hands. All eyes are focused on me. All fear, confusion. The Supreme Elder dejectedly put away the sword array. His whole person seemed to be hundreds of years older. He looked at me, his lips wriggling for a long time, before he opened his mouth in a hoarse voice. "Who exactly are you?" He wasn't asking my name. He was asking about my origins. A person who can achieve the great vehicle realm after a millennium of closed-door cultivation and can even reverse control of the founder's sword array can never be an unknown person. I didn't answer him. I just looked down at Lu Yao, sleeping peacefully in my arms. The death aura between her brows had completely dissipated, replaced by vitality. It wouldn't be long before she woke up. My heart finally settled down completely. I raised my head and swept my gaze over the thousands of disciples on the square who were as silent as cicadas in winter. You were present during the Dan removal. You watched when she was thrown off the cliff. During these 100 years, you either watched coldly or kicked her when she was down. You are all guilty. My voice was soft, but it was like a heavy hammer, hitting everyone's heart. All the disciples knelt down, shivering. Senior, spare us. We were wrong. We won't dare to do it again. Night, cold star sparse. Lin Qingwei lay on the hospital bed, staring blankly at the television. Today, Lin Shui, the daughter of the Lin family, and Mu Zichen, the young master of the Mu family, were successfully married. This wedding cost 300 million, which can be said to be unprecedented. The marriage between the Lin family and the Mu family, the strong alliance of two large groups. The stock price has risen steadily. Top, top, top. The sound of high heels sounded abruptly in the corridor, and then the door of the ward was pushed open roughly. Lin Qingwei looked up, a mocking smile on her pale lips. You still have time to come to me on your wedding night. It seems that Mu Zichen is not very good. Begging for mercy rose and fell. Now, you know you were wrong? Too late. My eyes were cold, without the slightest emotion. I'll give you two choices. First, cripple your own cultivation and get out of Qingxian's sect, never to step foot on this mountain again. Second, I'll do it myself and send you to join them. The entire plaza fell silent again. Crippling one's cultivation was harder to bear than death for a cultivator. But compared to death, it seemed there was still a choice to be made. An elder stood up, trembling. Senior, isn't this a bit too? I glanced at him. Before the elder could finish speaking, he followed in the footsteps of Xian Yangzhenren, turning into ashes. Does anyone else have objections? I asked calmly. No one dared to disagree. After a moment of silence, finally, the first disciple chose life. With trembling hands, he struck his own dantian with a palm. With a poof, his cultivation was completely shattered, instantly turning him into a mortal. He stood up, disoriented, and walked unsteadily down the mountain. With the first came the second and the third. On the plaza, the sound of spiritual energy dissipating was incessant. Each dull thud was like the tolling of a death knell for Qingxian sect. The supreme elder closed his eyes, and 2 lines of turbid tears flowed down his face. He knew that Qingxian sect was finished. It was finished the moment they chose to sacrifice Lu Yao to favor that so-called chosen one. I didn't watch the grand self-crippling ceremony. I carried Lu Yao back to the newly renovated Qingyao abode. Every brick and tile here was stained with the blood and sweat of Xian Yangzhenren and Su Qingqian. It could be considered their final apology to my sister. I set up a barrier, isolating all the noise from the outside world. In the room, I gently placed Lu Yao on the bed. Her breathing was steady, and her complexion was rosy, as if she were just asleep. I sat by the bed, quietly looking at her. Thousands of years apart, she had grown up and suffered. My fingertips gently brushed her cheek. Yao, from now on, brother will never leave you again. Time seemed to return to thousands of years ago. I was still the brother who liked to follow behind her, cleaning up her messes. She was still the mischievous little girl who would always call me brother in a milky voice. How wonderful. I don't know how long it was. Lu Yao's eyelashes fluttered slightly. She slowly opened her eyes. Those eyes were no longer clouded and became clear and bright again, as if there were stars twinkling inside. She looked at me, her eyes a little confused, a little dazed. Brother, she tentatively called out, her voice a little hoarse. I'm here. I took her hand, my voice gentle. Lu Yao's eyes instantly turned red. She suddenly sat up and hugged me tightly, bursting into tears, crying like a child. crying out all the grievances of the past 100 years, the pain of the past 100 years, the longing of the past 100 years. I didn't say anything, just gently patted her back, letting her tears soak my clothes. She cried for a long, long time. She slowly stopped, sobbing in my arms. Brother, I thought I would never see you again. Silly girl. I wiped away her tears. Brother promised you that when you grow up, I'd take you to see the myriad worlds. How could I break my promise? Lu Yao looked at me, laughing through her tears. Brother, you're finally out of seclusion. Yes, I'm out of seclusion. What about those who bullied me? She asked cautiously, her eyes filled with a hint of fear. They've all been taken care of, I said casually. From now on, no one can bully you anymore. Lu Yao nodded as if she understood. She leaned into my arms, feeling that long-lost warmth and peace, and slowly fell asleep again. This time, there was a sweet smile on her lips. The next day, I took Lu Yao to Qingyao abode. Overnight, the once bustling Qingxian sect had become empty. Only the disoriented Supreme Elder and a few old servants who also chose to stay and whose cultivation had been crippled were left. Seeing us, the Supreme Elder struggled to bow. I waved my hand, indicating that there was no need. Qingxian sect from now on is in your hands, I said lightly. The Supreme Elder gave a bleak smile. What's left of Qingxian sect now? What's left isn't important. What's important is what you've learned. I left these words and didn't look at him again. I took Lu Yao's hand and walked step by step towards the mountain gate. The sun shone on us, warm and comforting. Brother, where are we going? Lu Yao asked curiously. Her cultivation, with my help, had not only fully recovered, but had even advanced further than before, now at the transformation god stage. She was youthful, vibrant, and radiant. There was no trace of her past misery. To a place without strife. I smiled. Or, wherever you want to go, we'll go there. I want to see the sunrise over the East Sea. I want to see the stars in the northern desert. And I also want to see the sea of flowers in the southern border. Lu Yao said excitedly, her eyes sparkling. Okay, I readily agreed. I'll take you to them all. We walked to the mountain gate. I turned back, taking one last look at the mountain gate that held 1,000 years of my memories. Here lay the source of my pain, and also my only attachment. Now, the revenge is taken, and the person is returned. It's time to leave. I raised my hand and lightly sliced through the void. A spatial rift appeared out of thin air. The other side of the rift was a dazzling galaxy, an endless unknown. Let's go. I took Lu Yao's hand and stepped into it. Behind us, the desolate silhouette of the Qingxian sect. Before us, a brand new journey belonging to my sister and me.